God bless you, family. I'm a changed man for life. Thank you for stopping in and checking out my channel. Thank you for stopping in and checking out this video. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please take this opportunity to do so. Smash that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so that you get the alerts when the new content is dropped. How's everybody doing this Tuesday evening? I got a special treat for you today. Welcome to chapter 3 of Lifer Talk. As always, I like to be transparent with my viewers. I like to be upfront. This guest tonight is a good friend of mine. I consider him my brother from another mother, someone that I know very well. So I don't want nobody thinking it's a cold interview, like I don't know him, like I don't already know his story. But I want you all to get to know him and know his story. So with no further ado, let me bring on my guest. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing good, brother. I'm blessed.
That's right. That's right. So let me have you start off by introducing yourself. Tell the viewers what type of sentence you had and how much time you did off of that sentence.
Okay. Well, my name is Thomas Medley. I was born and raised in San Bernardino, basically all my life. I went to prison 4 months after my 18th birthday for second-degree murder, second-degree attempted murder, and possession of cell charges. Explain that part later. And I was sentenced to 29 years to life, which was, they ran 15 to life and 14 years bow-legged. So that's how it went, 29 to life when you compared it together.
And how much time did you end up doing off of that?
I did 23 years and 2 weeks.
Ooh-wee. And how long have you been out now?
I've been out, I'm going, this May will be 12 years.
Man,
I got out in May 2nd of 2013.
So you got out 2 years before I did. Before we go any further, I gotta let the people know this man right here is responsible in part for me sitting here today. You know, of course, as a Christian, I acknowledge God and I give all the honor and glory to God for me coming home. But when it comes down to me having to do my part, me having to prepare for the board and me having to learn all that stuff about board, this brother right here taught me probably 75 to 80% of what I know and what I, and what I ended up learning and ended up knowing. So I appreciate you, bro. I love you, bro. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. So I'm gonna let the people know that we met and became partners on a level 2 yard. We were in dorm living.
Yes.
For people that don't know what a dorm situation looks like, it's not like a cell. We were in what they call cubes. We were in Chuckawalla and we were in what they call cubes. And in our cube, there was approximately, I want to say 5 bunks, right? Was it 5 racks in our cube?
Well, you were on the bottom tier at first. That's how we met.
Right. And then you ended up getting me moved up there with you.
Yeah. You was on the bottom tier. And in that cube, they probably had about, what, 8 bunks? Eight to 9 bunks somewhere. Right. But on the top tier, they had 5 bunks.
Right. So Thomas ended up getting me moved up there into the cube where he was at, and I was his neighbor. And when I say neighbors, our beds, our bunks were literally like 1.5 feet apart, if that. Probably about 1 foot, but at times at least a cool 1.5 feet. And he was my neighbor like that for about what, like 3 years?
Yes.
Because I got there in 2010.
Yes, so that's until I went home.
Yeah, so it was like 3 years. So as I mentioned, I know this man very well. We have a very good relationship. But let's get into the interview, brother. So you said you grew up in San Bernardino and you ended up catching a murder case with some other stuff. Tell us about your childhood, your teenage years. What was it like growing up in the neighborhood where you grew up at?
Well, I mean, it was, back in the days, I guess if you would consider it country. We had fun. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody rode horses. Everybody did the mini bike thing. We all went swimming. We helped each other, go home. We was just like one big family, Right. And around the 80s, like everywhere else, when you hear all the stories on all these different shows, talk show, the snowfall came in, and then the gang started, and and all that, and it just turned the community to where everybody started doing different things with, as far as picking up different colors and different slogans, nicknames, different things like that. Like, my name has always been Medley. But that's my last name. So people
Right.
always just call me Medley.
Right.
But
Right.
mm,
So, and before we go any further, I want to, this is not the first YouTube channel. It's not the first interview you've done. I seen
no,
you, and people might recognize you from 16 to Life
yeah,
with Chill. You came with your partner. Shout out to Chill. I know you was on there talking about some stuff. So that's really
yeah,
cool that you get an opportunity to share your story with people. So would you say that you said in the 80s when it really started popping like that out there? And that's the same for where I grew up in Palmdale. It was like in the 80s that it really started getting like
yeah,
that. Was there
yeah.
like, was it like an influence, like maybe cats from LA was moving out there, or was it like movies, or
Yes.
what do you think really like sparked that
No,
type
I
of
was
stuff that you
a
thought?
lot of people, a lot of gang members that came, from LA, and they brought the drugs, the money, the cars, the girls, it changed a lot of things. It wasn't like San Bernardino didn't have hustlers themselves, they did.
Right,
But
right,
the cocaine just kind of changed things to a bigger scale where you could see, like, it was just like more younger people getting involved and getting money and having nice things. And those were the things that kind of influenced you. Even if you came from a good home, you was influenced by the Feelers, the Elise, the Adidas, the Pumas, all the little sweatsuits we used to wear. That was
right,
back then, the Turkish gold ropes and
right,
all that stuff.
right.
Everybody was all into that.
And so, about how old were you when you started participating in this lifestyle?
Well, I started young, but as far as just more or less willing and dealing. I was penny pinching, I started selling weed joint. That's when joints was for $1. I started selling joints for $1, because even though I say I grew up in San Bernardino the majority of my life, I have to say this. I lived in different areas of the county though. So
Mm,
like at this time I was living when I was selling like joints for $1, I was going to junior high school and I was probably in the seventh to eighth grade, but I was going to a junior high school called Altaloma Junior High. Everybody today know it as Rancho Cucamonga. Uh,
okay.
but I went to school. I went to junior high in Altaloma. A lot of people that know me and that'll say, "Oh, Medley went to school in San Bernardino in junior high," but that's not true. I went to school in Altaloma Junior High. Finished my sixth grade there. Went to junior high, my seventh and eighth grade in Altaloma Junior High, and
Mm,
then I started my high school at Etowanda High, and then moved back to San Bernardino my sophomore, probably my yeah, it was like the middle of my freshman or the beginning of my sophomore year, but I want to say the middle of my freshman year, I moved back to San Bernardino because all my family always lived there anyway. My
right,
grandmother stayed in the neighborhood, so that was just always the main house for my family. Period. No matter where you live.
right. Okay. So you're a teenager now. Well, you say you started young, so you were in junior high,
Yeah,
starting to do your little thing,
and then
getting older and coming up in the neighborhood and all that.
yeah. Then
Um,
about 14, I started selling rocks. I kind of like start nibbling and dabbling selling the rock cocaine. You
right,
know, shoot, it was just easy to do back then. It was
right,
like you didn't even have to really just look for it. People just pull up on you and ask you. You got it. If
right,
you
right,
have
right,
one or two of them, that was a quick $20, a quick $30, $40, whatever. So that just enhanced the fact that it was so fast and easy money. It just enticed you to get involved.
right. So at this time, were you already a gang member, or were you just serving?
I was just serving,
Right.
but I was, I would say I was associated. I was
Mm,
Crip associated because at
right,
this time, San Bernardino was a Crip city. So
right,
everybody always used the word cuz blue was the natural color
right,
back then at this time. It was very rare that you seen somebody wearing red. And if you do, you knew that he was a blood, like the whole city knew. And he
right,
dang near had problems everywhere he went because the
right,
whole city knew he was a blood, so it
right,
was
right,
kind of
right.
like that. So
right. And
Well,
at what point did you actually become an official gang member? Did you get put on, or tell us about that a little bit?
Well, when the money when I got more involved in the dope game, at the age of 15, I got more involved in the dope game. I got serious. I moved back to San Bernardino, and I went in full throttle.
Right,
Me and a couple of my homeboys, we just standing on the block serving one day, and the neighborhood that I grew up in was always the community of the California Gardens. So
mm,
we was like, then all these different neighborhoods was coming out there at the time, as far as from LA gangs, they were
right,
coming out there. So it was always kind of like a little rift with that because they came out there, had a lot of power, had a lot of money, a lot of local girls was running with them, and just they had all the money and stuff,
right,
the cars and stuff.
right,
So so we just came up one day, me and my boys, we just like, man, this California Garden Crip,
right,
and it went from there, and it just sprung off from there. From us three just saying that, it just sprung off from there, spread it. Uh, and I was very influential in the neighborhood as far as being liked. I was cool with a lot of different dudes, so I was able to influence some other dudes that was claiming other things at the time. Not the local stuff, but
right,
the other gangs from other cities. But they grew up with us all our life. I've been knowing them since we
right,
were juvenile hall, whatever, not juvenile hall, but juveniles, and I just convinced them like, man, let's just claim our neighborhood. And they was like, man, we with it.
right,
And
right,
and we all just made that pact to come together as one. And it spanned it all, but it all started out just for a cause that we thought was positive at the time. But
right.
it ended eventually getting out of hand, going crazy, and it's just out of hand today with like most things.
Right, right. So you guys are now officially claiming your neighborhood. You're in the street.
Yeah,
You're doing what it do. Take us to the day and the incident, and tell whatever you're comfortable telling. You don't got to give details if
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
to. Whatever you're comfortable telling. Tell us
Yeah.
about what ended up landing you a life sentence in prison.
Well, what ended up landing me in life sentence was, I took another man's life, bro. And I did it. I was guilty of sin, bro. I ain't gonna even in front about it. You hear people say, "Oh, I was innocent." No, I was guilty, bro. I
Right.
did it in broad daylight. I put a lot of people's lives in danger, and it was a shootout, bro. We was both reckless,
Mm,
It was just basically on some gang stuff, really,
right.
bro. The looks, the stares, the body language, all that stuff. They got paranoid, started shooting at me. I chased them down, in the middle of an intersection, and a shootout ensued, bro. And
Mm,
when that shootout ensued, we put a lot of people at risk.
right.
Two people got hit on that side. One died, one lived. And they sent the guy that I shot, because no one got shot in my car. Uh, they sent the guy that I shot that lived. They sent him to prison with me,
Mm.
and he was my crimey on my
Oh,
case.
dang.
Yes,
That's
so
crazy.
yes, he was my crimey on my case. We were crimies and we were trying to kill each other. We
Right.
went to, we went to trial together. Everything. They tried to give us both the murder. They found him guilty of involuntary manslaughter on the murder and gave me the second degree murder. And then in appeal, they actually took the involuntary off of him based on the fact that they found me guilty for the
Right.
higher crime. So you know how that went.
Right.
But
Right. Right.
he had crimes against me, and then I had crimes against him
So that's
because
crazy. So there's probably people that are maybe watching this video that have never lived that kind of life, don't know anything about prison or the legal system or whatever. And they're probably tripping out because even me, even having known this, because you've shared this with me before,
yeah,
and me having been through the system myself and knowing how all this stuff works, to me, that's still crazy. So I can
yeah,
imagine people that don't know anything about this are tripping out. Like, what do you mean? So he was in the car with the people that was shooting at you and your
yeah,
partners. Y'all
yeah,
shooting back at them. One of them, or maybe more, I'm not sure, what ended up dying.
yeah.
So
One dot.
technically, their car and the people in it, they're the victims. They end up
Yeah,
being the victims, but at the same time, they're also the aggressors
yeah,
because they were shooting at you as well.
at
That's
first.
just a whole
Yeah.
crazy concept, and then
So
y'all end
yeah,
up being considered crimies
yeah.
and going to jail and court together and all that. That's
We
crazy.
were in trial and everything. We were in trial together, everything. You
And was there
know.
ever any issues like he tried to, run up on you or anything, or you
Nah,
tried to hit
man.
him? Or
Nah, man. Actually, it's crazy because when you look back at that, dude turned out to be a pretty good dude.
right,
Once you in those situations, you don't know each other and all that. And you in them situations, and we both fighting for our life. And we got to talk about the case, because we know what really happened. I
right,
mean, I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't trying to talk to him. I'm quite sure he wasn't trying to talk to me. But
mm,
at the same time, you know, uh, eventually something's gonna happen to where you're gonna say, like, one time he broke the ice and said, "Man, do you see what they just did to us, man?" Like, and that
mm,
kind of broke the ice
right,
for us to communicate. Like
right,
because he was a lot older. He had been through the system before.
right.
I had never been incarcerated in my life, not even in juvenile hall. So
That's what I was going to ask you.
this was my first case. So my first time ever getting in trouble, I got a life sentence.
Yeah, that's similar to
Mm,
me. I had been to the county like
yeah,
2 or 3 times on some little stuff, but this was
yeah.
my first time going to the pen on some real stuff.
I had
Um,
never been to the county, Jim. Never
that's
been to the
that's crazy.
county.
Juvenile hall
Never been
camp,
to
none of that,
juvenile
huh?
hall. None of that. I
That's
went
what's up.
straight to the pen for life.
That's crazy. Let me
Yeah,
back up a little bit in your story because me knowing what we as lifers have to do in preparation for the board and all the self-help that we take and all the self-reflection we do and learning about stuff, you said something very very unique in when you were telling the story, and that's the fact that you recognize that in this incident you're in an intersection and you put a lot of other people in harm's way.
yeah,
At the moment, I'm sure you weren't tripping on that. You could have cared less. You wasn't
yeah,
even your singular focus
yeah,
was to get these cats. But what a trip now that we can look back and realize, like, dang, I had a bigger impact than I was even realizing at the time because I could have ended up shooting a lot of other people. That's similar
yeah,
for me. My murder took place at a party,
yeah,
and the dude that I shot, he took the first initial couple shots and ran back inside the party, and I chased him and just unloaded the clip just like randomly. I could have
yeah,
shot all kinds of other people too.
yeah,
At the time, I wasn't. We don't think about that, and I want if there's like youngsters or anybody that's actively in the game watching this, realize that when you're out there doing what it is you do, it's not just you or maybe the person you're trying to get that you're putting in harm's way. It could be all kinds of other people. It could be people's mamas. It could be people's dads, people's kids, people's brother, sister, whatever. We don't really stop and think about what we're doing. We're just in the heat of the moment.
yes.
And then it might not be till years, if ever, that people really stop and think like, dang, I could have been in a whole lot worse mess. So you've never been to prison before, you've never been to jail before, your first time on something where now you're in court, y'all are fighting. Were they trying to give you something worse? Like in my case, they were initially talking death penalty with us, but we took a deal. Did y'all end up taking a deal or did you go to jury trial?
No, we went to trial. We went to trial. The thing that was on the table for me because of the crime was they were saying the crime was gang related and
Mm,
all this and that. They were trying to give me life without. Back then, San Bernardino, if you were like 18, 19, they weren't really trying to put you on death row if you
right,
had, unless you just did something super heinous.
right.
But they were trying to give me life without, and I
Mm,
wasn't, and that was on the table, and I wasn't taking that. So I went to
wow,
trial and got the second degree murder and the second degree attempted murder. And and that was because I took a life and then I shot the guy that was my crime. He
right.
also got shot. So,
Mm,
in that
right.
aspect. So that
So
was
you ended up getting 15 to life, you said, on the
what
murder. Um,
14 years on attempted murder with the drug charge.
how long was your trial? How long was your trial process?
Man, you would never believe this. My case was the first gang related case probably San Bernardino had ever dealt with.
Mm,
So they were stopping my case, asking the appellate courts what they could get away, the fourth district, what they could do and can't do. And so my trial lasted about like 3 to 4 weeks, probably 4 weeks. It was long, bro, because it
yeah,
was days we couldn't go to court because they was waiting on a response from the appellate court.
right.
So it was like 3 or 4 days we would be out. and then
Mm,
come back and they got an answer, and or they would call you in the middle of the night. You got court in the morning, to be ready,
right.
different things like that. So it was
That's
crazy.
so a month-long trial. So take us to the day that you get found guilty. Everybody's seen it on TV and seen movies and all that, and they tell you stand up, and the jury's going to read the verdict and all that, and you hear that they find you guilty. What is your immediate thoughts? What were your immediate feelings?
I'm gonna be honest with you. They never told me to stand up. That's
Hmm.
one. No, they let us sit down. But the second thing was, bro, I remember looking out this window, and it was a bird in the window. It was a bird in the window. And when they found me guilty, I heard everything. I heard it, and I was like just numb to it. It didn't really hit me, right? But I
Right.
could hear my family in the background.
Hmm.
I could hear my mother's voice. I could hear my grandmother's, a few of my cousins. The courtroom was like, like dang, like, it was real. I could hear it when I got found guilty. Because I hadn't got sentenced yet. I just got found guilty. Now
Okay.
sentencing is a whole nother deal. But
Right.
but so when I looked, I thought about it. So when I went up to the thing, I was like, dang, that's when it kind of hit me. Like, man, I'm finna spend the rest of my life possibly in
Right.
here. So my lawyer came and seen me, and he told me, look, you're looking at 15 to life. Look,
Mm,
it had maxed it out. If they had gave me all the numbers they could have gave me, it would have been up to like 40 to life. But
dang.
they cut, how they cut things in half because they give you the
Right.
midterm on this and the
Right.
midterm on that. So that's what brought it down to 29 a lot because they give you the
Mm,
midterm. Like back then, they only gave me, instead of giving me the 5 years for the gun, they only gave me the 3 years for the gun,
right.
that type
Right.
of deal,
Right. Yeah.
or the 4 years for the gun. So yeah, it was just different back then.
Right. So now you get sentenced, and how long is it till you catch the chain going upstate?
I hadn't got sentenced at that point. When I got sentenced, I got to 29 in life. All
Mm,
my family and friends was there. A lot of
mm,
all my homeboys, they filled the courtroom up. I
mm,
gotta say that. They filled the courtroom up. I mean, it was standing room only in there when I got sentenced. They was in there
right.
thick. My homeboys came, they showed me they had a lot of love and respect
Right.
for me, and that I got a big family anyway, but a lot of my homeboys and homegirls came, they brought their kids, everything. And
Mm.
then I went upstate. I probably went to the pen 2 weeks later
Oh,
from
dang.
San
So I got the
Bernardino
chain
County.
pretty quick.
Yeah, two
You
weeks
got the
later.
chain pretty quick.
Chino, we was right there in San Bernardino
Okay.
County, Chino right there. So,
Right.
they going every day to Chino. They going every day to Chino back then.
And what was that like hitting Chino reception for your first time? First time ever going to prison. I remember when we caught the chain, we were in Wayside, which is part of the LA County jail
Yeah,
system, and we went to Wasco. And same like you, I had never been to prison before.
yeah,
My crimey, he had been to prison before. He had just got out not too long before we caught this case.
yeah.
So he already knew what time it was. But when we pulled up to the prison, and I remember pulling up and seeing the towers and the barbed wire and all that, and just the feeling of dread, like, dang, where am I going? What am I about to get up into? What did you think and feel when you pulled up to the prison?
When I pulled up to Chino, Chino was different, bro. It was all, older prison.
Right,
So it was crazy because I hit R&R, when you hit R&R, just that experience alone is shocking, bro. Like
right,
you get in there, they tell everybody get butt naked. You standing in a line, they say get cheek to cheek. They don't want to see no gaps. Your cheeks
right,
got to be next to the next man's cheeks. And if your cheeks ain't next to the next man's cheeks, then they gonna snatch you up and beat you up. That's
yeah,
how it was back then.
right,
They snatch you up and beat you up for not following the rules and instruction of the
right,
COs. It was just that's how it was. So everybody they would say nut the butts, cheek
hmm,
to cheek, whatever they had
right,
going on, they would say, right?
right,
So those is one of the experiences that I remember vividly. And you walked around R&R with no clothes on, for over probably 2 hours, from taking pictures
Right.
to everything. They ain't giving you no boxes, no nothing. You out there just butt naked. You
That's crazy.
butt naked. All you got is your property that they allow you to have from the county jail. They make you throw all your clothes. If you're not sending them home, they make you
Right.
throw all your clothes in a bin where you donate them or something like that.
Right.
And
Right.
so I remember that. Then I got my number. I looked at it. I was like, man, so this is the number that I'm going to have for the rest of my life, huh?
Mm.
You know, because at that time, as lifers, we felt like we was never getting out. We were going to die in prison.
Right.
And
Right.
this what
And
people
that's
would
what it
tell you.
was.
And
Right.
this what people would tell you when they knew you had life in the
Right.
county jail, or whether you was a reception or went to the main line, wherever you landed. So I had already heard that. So I'm looking at the number that I would have for the rest of my life. And
Right.
it was crazy that this number was like, it just stood out to me. I don't know why, it just stood out to me like it was supposed to be there or something. I don't know, but it was like
That's
one of them
crazy.
divine interventions, like it was supposed to be there.
Right.
But and that's what happened. That was my feeling for that.
Man. And then so from there you end up eventually going to your first main line. Where did you end up going?
New Folsom. I was at New Folsom
Woo! What year
for,
was that?
it was in 1991.
Okay.
1991. I went to New, it was 91, I think. It was I went to New Folsom. I got there, it was on the lockdown. A brother had jumped on the program administrator. Today they call
Mm.
him the captain. But a
Right.
brother had jumped on a program administrator, brother from Hoover, jumped on a program administrator, which ensued into a melee. You know how that goes.
Right.
They chopped the yard up, so we were on lockdown. And as on that lockdown, I remember going back into the building. I want to say I was going back into the building. There was something, but I was going back into the building, and his officer seen me. He was like, "Man, how old are you?" I was like, "Man, I'm 19. I just turned 19." He said, I said, "I'm 19. He said, "Man, you look young." He said, "Man, give me your ID." He gave me, and he wrote my name down. I don't know what he got it for. You know, he got my ID, wrote my name down, whatever, my information, and then he just gave it back. I didn't know what it was. So then about 3 weeks later, because we were still on lockdown, about 3 weeks later, they told me to roll it up. I was going to Old Folsom.
Mm.
So when I got in the van to go to Old Folsom, because they didn't take you in a bus, they just took you in a van. When I
Right.
got in the van to go to Old Folsom, which is right across the street, the guy that took my ID, he said, "Man, I had you pulled over here, man." He said, "You're too young to be starting out over there." You know,
Right.
he said, I had you pulled over here. I feel this would be a better fit." He said, "Man, don't make me look bad. I did you a favor." You know,
Right. Right.
that's what he
Right.
told me. "I did you a favor." So
Yeah,
when I
because New
got to Old
Folsom's
Folsom, it
crazy.
was a lot better. It was a lot better, a lot more. Your cells were a lot smaller, you know,
Right. Right.
a lot smaller. Like, man, you can go sleep in your closet right now. That's the Old Folsom cell, you know.
Right.
And some people got bigger closets than that,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, the
I
old
got a
prisons
closet.
like that, Old
Yeah,
Folsom, Quentin, the most solid dad. I never been to none of them old prisons like that, but just from seeing them like on TV and in YouTube videos and stuff like that, people reach across and you could touch. You could
yeah,
touch the walls just from your arm stretched out.
yeah,
That's crazy. That's a
yeah.
little tiny cell.
And so and depending on what side the toilet, because sometimes the toilet set directly behind the bottom bunk or set out in the aisle or the walkway, and the walkway wasn't nothing. But however it was, if yours set behind the bunk or the lower bunk, you would have to use the bathroom sideways. You
Right.
couldn't sit, you know, straight. You got to turn sideways on the toilet to use the bathroom, you
That's
know.
crazy. I never heard of that before.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's cool.
Yeah.
People don't realize unless you've
Yeah.
been through it, you don't realize some of the stuff that
Yeah.
people that are doing time go through. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're in Old Folsom now, and over the years go by, right? You're on level 4. You work
Yeah.
your way down eventually to level 3. You go
No,
to
what happened was at Old Folsom, I was there, and then '92 they opened up Calipatria, and I
Okay.
was one of the. So they put me on that list and some
Right.
the Calipatria, and I was one of the first 36 people to open that prison up.
To hit.
They
Woo.
they dropped us on AR, so I was one of the first 36 people. I mean, the buses were coming, but we were like one of the first ones that got there. I mean, you would hit the sink in the cell, and mud just came out the pipes. It was just mud. We
Right.
had to flush the toilets and push the buttons all night for probably like 3 weeks to clear
To
the
get it to
dirt
run
line.
through. Right.
Yeah, to clean the lines in there. And everybody, you would just hear people just flushing their toilets, running it, pressing their sink things just to clean it out. So they
Right.
could at least just drink some water to get the dirt out the line. Because
Right.
back then, we drunk water out of the sink in
Mhm.
our cells at the time.
Right. So you and I know, and anybody that may be watching that has done time knows, when a prison is brand new, it's wild in the mother. It'd be cracking, especially at level
Oh
4.
yeah.
And Calipat already,
Yes.
Calipat has a reputation, for being a violent
Yes.
prison.
I
So
was
I can
there.
only imagine what it was like
I was
opening it
there.
up and having to
I
establish
was there.
handball courts and basketball courts and these bleachers and those bleachers and all the stuff that goes
Yeah.
on. And you being young and barely starting off your time, that must have been a heck of an experience right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was man, it was some solid dudes, man. I gotta give it up to it. Was a lot of solid dudes, man, that already had been places. They were bringing people from Pelican Bay, Tehachapi. They was bringing them from all over to get that pen going, man. And it went from, and we were single man cell status for
Mm,
years, like on top and bottom. We were all
right,
one man cells. So that kind of made it a lot of easier for everybody because people wasn't just crowded at one time. So they went
right.
single man cell status throughout the prison. Like if this yard got full, then they went single man status for the next yard. And then because it had 4 yards, A, B, C,
Mm,
and D. And then
hmm.
it had the level 1, which was the E yard, when
Right.
where the guys went over there with the level 1s that could go and do the camp and all the outside stuff for the prison you
Right.
know. But it was cool, man. We had to establish some things, of course, that just always with anything that goes on, we have to establish things.
Right.
And but once everything got established, it turned out to be a great prison, bro. But then the politics is gonna always supersede in that. But in the
Right.
beginning, everybody, I'm gonna say just in the beginning, everybody wasn't focused on each other. Everybody was focused on how we were getting treated by the correctionals.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
so Calipat had a high violence for people jumping on correctional officers at the time I
Yes.
was there.
Right.
At the time I was there, dudes was always jumping on the police, no matter what race it was. And it was an unwritten rule that no matter who was fighting the police, no matter it was Mexican, white, or whatever, Asian, black, if you were near that area, you gotta help.
Right.
You didn't get you didn't, it was different back then. You
Right.
had to help. If you sat down, your people was gonna get you.
Mm.
So just imagine that,
Right.
just
And that's
so
I'm glad you bring that up because for the most part in movies and in people's YouTube videos and just in general, the perception of the general public is that the races just hate each other and are always at each other and never come together for nothing. But that's not necessarily true. There are instances where different races get together
yes,
for one purpose.
yes. And they didn't care who was fighting the police. If he was Mexican fighting the police, I was standing behind him. I better help.
Right.
And vice versa. It just
Right.
was an unwritten rule. Didn't nobody say this is what we're gonna do. People just did it. And if you didn't help, you got in trouble.
Right. 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 So you there, you're at Calipat, you're doing your time.
yeah.
Were you like now in a mindset of like, okay, this is just my life, this is me, and I'm just here, you know what I mean? Were you still thinking about the streets? Were you thinking about will I go home someday, or were you just focused on doing your time?
I was focused on doing my time. I had life. I didn't think I was ever getting out. But I ran into some good brothers, man. If you don't mind, I gotta say their names
No,
because
do your thing.
they was very helpful to me. One of the main brothers was a brother by the name of Racy Cup. He was from Long Beach 20. He was very influential in my life, man. Uh, very influential. Racy Cup, he didn't have life at the time, he just had years. And he took me under the wing, bro,
Right.
for an older dude, and at that time I was active, so I'm on the yard being a younger crip, and he took me up under the wing, and he showed me the ropes about a lot of things.
Mm.
Then there was another brother we called him, he was out of the OVG, the
Out of Valley.
OVG out of the valley.
Right.
We called him the Magnificent Lump. That was his name. His name was Lump, but we called him the Magnificent Lump. He was also very influential in my life. Them two brothers, bro, took me under the wing, man. They taught me a lot about, what you got to do, how you got to be, how you going to survive in here. Because they was in there from the Tracy days when
Right.
Tracy was Bug Wild, and now we at Calipat. They was
Mm.
there then. So they knew
Right.
what to do because they was my age when they dropped on Tracy at 18, 19
Right.
years old.
Right.
And they knew. So when I come at Calipat and I'm 19, 20, they just gave me everything that they had from their experiences from 81 to 82, 83 in them years. So
Right.
I took a lot of game in from them two dudes, man. And
Right.
they was very big on education.
Mm.
That's why I was always big on education. Reese Cup, he would always say, "Man, you ain't got no high school diploma." I'd be like, "Nah, I don't need one. I ain't getting out." He said, "Man, what you want to be in jail and die dummy?"
Mm.
He said, "Man,
Right.
go
Right.
to
Right.
school.
Right.
Go to school, man. Go to school. Get your GED, man." He said, "I don't hang with people that don't have no high school diploma."
That's
you
great. That's
know,
crazy. But that's cool though. That's
and it
cool
was
that
different. And it was
right.
different then because in that black community back then, bro, inside the prisons, everybody preached that. If they found out you didn't have no education, they either made you be self-taught, bro,
Mm.
or they made you go to school,
Right.
you know. And let me go back because it was another person that was very influential. I had a brother by the name of older brother that I dropped in a cell with at Old Folsom. And his name was they call him Wausi. He was a Muslim brother. Call him Wausi, but his name was Black. He was up out of the
Mm.
Nicholsons. Uh, and he was a good brother. Now he was big on education too. you
Right.
know, uh, he wouldn't, because I didn't have a TV at the time. I was still waiting on my property. I was fresh when I just got there. So my stuff kind of got mixed up into the whole. I was at New Folsom. Now I'm at Old Folsom. Shuffle. You know how that do
Right.
when you move from
Right.
prison to prison.
Yes.
So we got caught up in that. And so he didn't cut on his TV until the sun fell. When the sun went down, he watched TV. But
Mm.
when the sun was up, he read books. So that's what kind of started it too. I was in the cell with somebody who was like self-taught, but he had a high school diploma on that. But he
Mm.
basically taught himself and stayed focused on education itself. So when the
Right.
sun was up, he would read. And so he got me into that. Like, man, go on and read because I don't turn my TV on until night. When the TV come on, we can
Right.
watch whatever you want to watch. But
Right.
I don't turn it on till night. And that was cool, because
Right.
it got my vocabulary up, all the
Mm.
things that I was missing from running the streets, being a high school dropout, more or less,
Mm.
uh, get more involved in the dope game thing, and that was gonna be the rest of my life until the
Right.
day I die, And then now I had to come here and do something that was right, and what people would consider in the wrong place, but I
Mm.
was really
Right.
in the right place, you
Right.
know.
You were where you needed to be at the
Yeah, I
time.
was where I needed to be.
That's
Exactly.
that's crazy. And
You
now we
know.
can look at it like that. Having been through
Yes.
what we've been through, we can look back and be like, man, that really for me was a saving grace. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Because I just did a video recently talking about what if I had not gone to prison? Because in the boards, sometimes they ask you that. What would your life have been? What do you think your life would have been like if you didn't come to prison? And some people will be like, oh, I would have went to college and I would have became a doctor. And no, you wouldn't. We was out there gang banging, slanging dope or addicted to dope, or our lives would have not been good. They were
No,
not good at the moment. They were not going to get no better.
we were criminals, bro.
Man, so we can
We
look
were
back
criminals.
now and be honest about that. So what I want to kind of fast forward. So a number of years go by, you make your way to level 3, you make your way to level 2 eventually.
Yeah.
At what point did you find hope? At what point did you realize that maybe I can go home and start working towards that?
It was after the board in 2009. I always had a little hope though, Jim. I did. I had great support from my mother, my family, my friends. You know, my homeboys looked out for me, man. I had, several different women that had been in and out of my life. But my current wife, Sheila, she was with me. You remember her? You remember
Mm-hmm.
that, Jim?
Yeah.
Sheila was with me, so I give a lot to Sheila, bro. As far as that, because when it came to that outside help that we needed with the paperwork,
Right.
she was able to capture what we had to do and what we needed from that outside help.
Right.
Because everybody can't get that. Like when you talk in your life or stuff and you need somebody from the outside to capture that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To help you from the outside. Because that'll just help you with the outside stuff because you've been in so long. At that time, I had been in probably about 19, 20 years,
Right.
And it was her first time ever dealing with somebody in my situation. So I had to kind of like lace her up about all the paperwork and what was expected, how it needed to be done. Me and her would go back and forth over the phone. We
Right.
would blow, back then we didn't have the free calls and the tablet.
Right.
I would burn the phone out in one day, just calling back and forth because we going back and forth. You get a certain amount of calls with $50 or $60, and then you got to put money back on the phone for us
Right.
to finish the conversation, that type of
Right.
deal. Sometimes she wouldn't put money on the phone because she didn't want to hear my voice no more. Give her the rest for the night.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, that's crazy. So you're developing this seed of hope within yourself,
Yeah,
and you're doing your board prep. How many times did you go to the board?
3 times.
You went 3
So,
times.
so my first time was in 2007. At that board, because of my case and my situation, the guys that I shot and the guy's life that I took, the guy that lived admitted that they started shooting at me first.
Okay.
So he admitted that they started shooting at me first. California, for the people that don't know, because I'd be like, that's self-defense. California does not have a self-defense law.
Sure don't.
They have a justified homicide law.
Yes.
But if you're a gang member, and I have to say this because we have gang members watching this channel.
Right.
If you're a gang member, none of those laws apply to you because you are a domestic terrorist.
Correct.
So none of those laws apply to you. So don't never feel like if you're a gang member carrying a gun, you can shoot someone in self-defense. You can't. You're carrying an illegal gun, you're a domestic terrorist, and you're gonna go to prison for life if they can get up the evidence to convict you.
Absolutely.
You're gonna go to prison for life.
Right.
Because you're already a criminal when they say you're a gang member.
Right.
It is against the law to be in a gang in California.
Right. So how did the board look at that now that this dude has admitted that they're the ones that instigated the whole incident?
Well, they told me, Jim, not to cut you off, bro, but they told me from day one, you know what, Mr. Medley, this is a very interesting case. It shocked them, like how you were shocked. Right. They said, remind me never to commit a crime in San Bernardino. That's what the one board member told the other board. Remind me to never commit a crime in San Bernardino. And they gave you life. And I was like, yeah, I'm here with you. They was like, They said, Mr. Medley, stay out of trouble. We're gonna get you out of prison. Now, let me say this. That was my first hearing.
Right.
And I had heard all the horror stories of the board. So when I went back to the yard, I'm like, they ain't letting nobody out. That's what everybody said. I didn't take heed to that, Jim. What they had said, that was a key word in what they had said.
Right.
So So now the cell phone things are already popping in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So we was like one of the first prisoners to get on with the cell phone stuff. So, and I mean, it was bad, bro. We had to, I can say it now because ain't nobody, they got tablets and stuff. They're allowing them to watch video. But
Right.
we had the DVDs. We was watching DVDs. We had
Wow.
the cell phones and, and it was so crazy because it was COs who would search people's property, bro, and be looking at a DVD player and just thought it was a CD player.
Right.
They didn't, but then it was so normal for them to see DVDs, they thought we were allowed to have them.
Right.
So we weren't getting, so they weren't taking them, they weren't getting in trouble until somebody said, man, they ain't allowed to have DVDs. And that's when they came through and they just did a major sweep and they started hitting everybody for the DVDs. And I had a cell phone at the time, but I never got caught with it there.
Right.
I ended up transferring to another prison, and because it was shutting Chuckawalla down at the time to do the air conditioning, so they transferred us out. I ended up going to Tehachapi 2-yard. I took my phone with me, and that's where I got busted with my phone.
Right.
I got busted with my phone there, and I ended up going up to Avenal. Avenal, believe it or not, we talked about Avenal. We called it Tell It All Avenal. But for me, that was one of the best prisons I ever been to. That prison gym was just too loose.
Right.
I had to leave that place, and you'd have got it.
Yeah, I heard stories about it. I heard stories about how off the hook it was.
Too loose. So I went back to Chuckawalla. I needed a little bit more structure. They opened Chuckawalla back up after they did the vent, the air conditioning stuff, because now they got the cool air running through the buildings, everything. I was there when it was a sweat box. Now it's
so yeah, you was there when there was no air conditioning.
Yeah. I was there when it was just all swamp cool. It was a sweat box.
For people that don't know, Chuckawalla is located in the town of Blythe, which is down towards the Arizona and Mexico borders, down that direction.
Yeah.
Hot, like 117, 119, 120, no shade on the yard, except maybe like in the little gym area. But just on the yard itself, woo, hot.
It'll be 117, Jim, for a week. Terrible. Even at night.
Yeah. When I got there in 2010, they already had the air conditioning, so it wasn't quite as bad in the buildings, but I can't even imagine.
So I went back 2009 to Chuckawalla. I went to the board. I took that cell phone right up with me. They didn't want to talk to me, bro. They was like, take a step. I'm like, nah, I'm going in, because if you take a step, you basically admitting guilt. You're basically saying you did something wrong, and they don't have to see you the next time you go to the board. So you want to go in there and talk about it. Even if you got in trouble, no matter what it is, you want to go in there and talk about it. So I went in there and talked about it. But now, at this time, now the Marcy rule had came into play. The Marcy's law, which were, because at first they could only deny us up to 5 years in 2007. But now in 2009, they could deny you up to 15 years.
Yes.
And 3 years being the lowest you can get denied. So everybody, because I was the first cell phone beef that was going to the board in 2009, and everybody that was still kind of playing with the cell phones, I had left them alone now. But everybody that was still playing with them was kind of concerned of what they was going to do with me about the cell phone beef. So when I went in there, they didn't want to talk to me. They like, nope. Take a step. I didn't want to go. They said, take a 2-year step. No, they said, take a 1-year step. Nope, let's get in here. So they went in there. So after going in there, I talked to them and stuff. I knew I was going to get denied 2009. And I knew I was going to get denied. And but they only denied me 3 years, bro. And but the one guy that was in my first hearing, he said, Mr. Medley, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in your hearing in 2006. He said, and I told you that I would one day get you out of here. He said, I'm going to tell you this again with some stipulations. Mr. Medley, I'm going to still get you out of here. But if you come back with any write-up in 2012, You can forever get, you can forget about ever getting out.
Ooh.
This is what he told me in 2009.
Right.
So what I did, Jim, the next day after going to that hearing, I walked into the education and I said, hey, man, what y'all got for me? Because I'd already got my college degree from
Right.
Chuckawalla, right?
Yeah.
So I said, man, what y'all got for me? So it was a guy by the name of Lawrence Ragu. He was a child prodigy. Remember Lawrence Ragu? You remember Lawrence Ragu?
I remember the name, yeah.
We called him Larry. His name was Larry. He was the education clerk over the college.
Right.
So Lawrence Ragu, I think he was a child star in a lot of TV shows. But he was he said, hey, Thomas, we got this program. I said, what is it? He said, it's called Addicted Alcohol and Drug Studies, you know. He said, you take these classes, you can be a counselor when you get out. You know, if you ever get out, you can be a counselor, but it'll look good at the board. He said the only downfall is, like when we were in college, they paid for our books. That's how we got our degree. He said, now you got to buy your own books. I said, oh, all right then. He said, so you want to sign up? I said, yeah, I signed up for the college thing, the ADS program.
Right.
When I signed up, he said, okay, you got accepted. You got to buy your books. So I wrote my family, you know, I wrote my cousins, my family, you know, a few of my homeboys. They said they got me. So they bought my books. I took 3 classes. I think it was 3 to 4 classes, whatever. But I took them and I did well in them, you know. And that's what kind of got my whole little education thing. I did well in them.
Right.
So then that's when I kind of met you at this time. Now 2010 come in. I'm doing my classes. You know, I'm doing a lot of studying. I'm doing different things with the board. It kind of like I started doing more self-help groups because I was already doing NA and AA, but I was doing other groups as well, you know, being facilitators of different groups as well as doing my addictive drug study classes, my alcohol drug study classes. So when that took place, things just started opening up. So one day it just hit me. It was about, I was getting ready to go to the board. It was about 2011. And it never hit me like this before. I said, man, I think me and you might have been talking. And I told you, because now I moved you next door up to me in the bunks. Because remember, those bunks were empty at first.
Right.
Then they went and started filling up
Filling them up. Yeah.
Filling them up.
Right.
And that's a whole nother story. I don't know if you want to talk about that. But that's a whole nother story. And I remember when Chavez asked me, that was the correction officer at the time, he asked me, he said, hey, Medley, who you want to live next to you? And I couldn't pick nobody in that building I wanted to live next to me. But I knew you had just got there.
Right.
And the word on the tier was you were a lifer. And you had just came from Ironwood. So for me, you know, I was always pro-lifer, you know, trying to put them in the best position. Right. So for me, you had just got there, and I'm seeing you're in a cube right next to the shower, so you're getting all the noise, all the friction, everything. You behind the podium.
Behind Chavez and them.
Yeah, you behind the podium, and you were standing at your locker, just looking out at the tier, like you wondering, like, where am I at? You was like lost, right? So when Chavez asked me, he said, "Who you want in your cube next to you?" Medley, I said, put him in the cube next to me. I said, you a lifer. And you looked around, you was looking around, you pointing to me. You was like, I said, yeah, you. So you shut your locker real fast, locked it, and came over there. He was like, what's up? I was like, nah, man. He was asking me, who I wanted to live upstairs next to me in my cube. I'm in that cube up there, but they finna open up the bunks next to me in the end. I said, you want to move up there? He was like, yeah, sure. I was like, all right. So that's how you got up there.
Yeah.
So then I don't know if they had you pick your bunkie or not, but I remember me plugging you with the bottom bunk.
Right.
Getting up there. I remember that, me plugging you, and I didn't know you from Adam. I just knew you were a lifer, and I said, I was trying to put you in the best position, you know.
Yeah,
God just touched my heart and said, pick him.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be the right choice. Turned
Man,
out to be the right choice.
that was that was a big moment for me. That probably turned like us down on that lower tier. You know, it was crazy down there.
Yes.
It was off the hook. People was doing
Yeah.
all kind of stuff. And even
Yeah.
though at that precise time, I really wasn't tripping off trying to go home. That was one
Yeah.
of the things that like kickstarted that whole process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just being around you and some of the other cats that was there that was doing their board stuff that really
Yeah.
got me moving. So tell us about now when you go to board and they tell you go through your hearing and they tell you they find you suitable. If you can describe what was in your mind, what was in your heart, what was that like to hear the words, "You're no longer a threat to society, and we're finding you suitable for parole"?
Well, bro, it was big. It was big, bro. I mean, they wanted to see my reaction,
Yeah.
but they was reading it so fast, it was like I couldn't catch it. Then when they said, we find you suitable for parole, was big because I didn't think they were going to let me out. I'm
Right.
going to be honest with you. And that meaning, I'm going to go back just a little because every time I went to the board, the guy that actually got me convicted on my case, which was my DA, he would always show up to my board for me to keep
Okay.
me in prison.
Right.
Well, this time, the lead board member had asked me, he said, Mr. Medley, you know, they shot at you in your neighborhood. You chased them, let's just say 3 miles. It was 2.7, 2.8 miles. But let's just say 3 miles. You chased them 3 miles. He said, what was your intent when you caught up with them? Now, me, even right now today, I wouldn't have said what I said, but see, when you're doing right and you living right with God, bro, God gonna touch your heart and
Yes.
put things in your and gonna make you speak your truth. You know,
Right.
God gonna make you speak your truth. And I told him, I said, to kill him. That was my intent, to kill him.
Right.
And they dropped the books. Everybody looked around. He said, man, you just took the air out the room with that. He said, but that was your intent.
Right.
You chased them 3 miles. That was your intent, Mr. Medley. Because they use words like that, Jim, if you remember,
Yes.
to see if you had insight into your crime
Right.
and what you had done, what was the impact.
Right.
And so that right there was my insight, understanding that my intent the whole time when I chased them 3 miles was to kill them. And he said, so he said, I don't have nothing else to say. The DA started speaking and said, I didn't have insight. I didn't have remorse. He interrupted him and told him, said, man, we're going to hang up from you because I just heard this man say his intent was to kill him. If
Right.
that wasn't insight and he didn't have the remorse, he wouldn't even know to say that. So he's
Right.
been working on himself. So we're just going to hang up from you, sir. You have a nice day. So when they shut him down, I kind of like, okay, it's going. So they went into my education. And as you know, I was a facilitator in a lot of groups. I was very active in the programs on the yard and everything. And I was doing the Phoenix House program. I just kind of completed all that. So they found me suitable. My education was impeccable. They was like, Mr. Medley, your education is impeccable. You came here, you got your GED, you got your college degree, you got your you completed your alcohol and drug study courses, where you can be a certified alcohol and drug counselor now. You just have to. They said, what do you have to do to be certified? I said, well, I have to get out of prison, take the state test, because the instructor left that would take the state test. They left to another prison. They said, "Oh, okay, well, we'll note that." So I told them I had to get out of prison, take a state test. So I went in, and my lawyer came back. He said, "Man, you didn't even need me. I'm gonna just go eat my lunch." And he went to his lunch. And he came, but they called me back out in an hour. Came back in. They found me suitable, bro. I cried. I
Right.
cried. I was very happy. Uh, I was very happy. But the craziest thing, so my wife, Sheila, was waiting on me to call. Everybody was waiting. My mother, everybody. I
Right.
didn't get the happy experience to call home and be like, Mama, I'm suitable, you know.
Right.
But when I got back to the yard, all the phones was down on the yard.
That's crazy. And you weren't about to pick up one of them things.
No, 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 I ain't touching no cell phone. So, so everybody was waiting on me to call. So eventually they got the call that I got found suitable. Everybody was happy. Uh People were still pessimistic, you know, family
Right.
members saying, oh, the board can still take his date, the governor can
Mhm.
take it, you know, which was
Right.
true. The governor can't take it. But as I start seeing certain people going home, and I'm like, nah, they're not gonna take my date. And the reason why is because uh it was one thing me or you probably never looked at, but I remember telling you this. Jim, they not gonna take my date because the same crime they gave me life for, I was a victim as well.
Right. Right. Right.
Remember me telling you that?
Hmm. Yeah.
I remember we were talking one late night. It was dark. The lights were out. We was just chopping it up about board stuff. And I remember telling you that. They not going to take my date, bro.
Yeah.
I think you had kind of asked me, like, what you think the government? I said, they not going to take it. I'm a victim in the same crime that gave me life.
Right. Yeah. That's crazy.
And you was like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm a victim.
Yeah. That's
If
true.
they say he's a victim, he got crimes against me.
Right.
So I'm a victim too.
Right.
Because he said they started shooting at me first. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So they let me out May 2nd, 2013, bro. And that was probably the best feeling ever, bro. That was the best feeling ever. You know, my mother was sick. I almost lost my mother twice while we was there.
I remember.
Made it home. You know, I made it home. And when I got home, my mother was wheelchair bound, bro. And I got to
Mm.
tell the story. She was wheelchair bound, couldn't stand up and hug me or nothing, and was on oxygen.
Right.
When I walked in our family church, bro, because I surprised everybody. They didn't know I was coming home. They
Mm.
thought they were meeting the parole officer to talk about me possibly getting out the next
Right.
month.
Right. Right.
So only a few family members knew. So my mother and my grandmother and them didn't know. So they had cooked all this food for the parole officer. I got family members saying, oh, they ain't gonna eat that food. That police ain't gonna eat that food. Why y'all cooking this food? And all
Right.
this and that. You know, you always got the pessimistic family members and stuff.
Right.
So uh, when I got out, and I walked in, my aunt was in front of me. She kind of set it up. My aunt was in front of me. She said, hey, y'all, when I got out the car, me and Sheila and her friend pulled up. And I got out the car. The person that pulled up next to me, and I wasn't going to get past her, but I had to beat her inside before she tell them she seen me, was my
Mm.
niece, my oldest niece. I seen her. She had pulled up on the side of me and Sheila there. And I was getting out the car, and she was kind of thrown off, but she didn't recognize it was me in the same token.
Right.
So
Right.
then I was like, hey, Visha, and she recognized my voice. She was like, oh, she was like, oh. So I gave her a quick hug. I looked at her baby because she had just had her
Mm.
first baby. I looked at her baby, kissed my great niece, and I beat her in the church. So when I met her in the church, when I went in the church, my aunt was coming in. She said, you ready? I'm like, yeah. So she said, hey, y'all, I got something to tell y'all. And as she said, I got something to tell y'all, I walked in and she said, Medley home. And man, you should have seen it. My one cousin, I could hear my mother telling him, make me a plate, put me some chicken and some mashed potatoes on there.
Right.
Well, he was making a plate, but when I walked in, and they said, Medley home, I seen him throw the plate in the air. The food came back down, only messed up his
Oh
nice
no.
outfit. Messed up his nice outfit. Everybody screaming and yelling. My mom, you know, I dropped to my knees, hugged my mom, you
Right.
know, crying. My mom was hollering, you know, everybody thanking the Lord,
Right.
yelling Jesus, you know. My grandma came. I went and hugged my grandma. She, you know, she was 80 at this time. My grandmother was 81 at the time. My
Mm.
mother was 61. So I hugged my mother, I hugged my grandmother, everybody crying. My little sister, she was 2 when I went to prison. So now
Mm.
she's like 25,
Right.
just had her second kid. She's jumping up and down, screaming, I told y'all. To this day, I don't know what she meant. And I've asked her, what was that? She was like, I told y'all, I told y'all, I told y'all, I told y'all. And she was like just screaming, I told y'all, I told y'all. My older sister, she was broke down crying. But my aunt Nisi, her name is Denise, but we call her Nisi. My aunt Nisi, she was so like just I caught her on her knees crawling
Mm.
in the church part of our church. She was crawling. And I went and picked her up. I seen her, she crawling. She was
Right.
so my aunt was crawling. And when I said, what's wrong? You all right? Baby, baby, take me. And when she said, take me, I looked on the podium, it was a Bible open.
Mm.
So she had me walk her to the Bible, and she just
Right.
felt on the Bible, and she started crying, and she was just reading the verses out the Bible, bro. This is my first moment,
Right.
being home with my family. She's
Right.
reading the verses out the Bible, and she's like, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you." And everybody just thanking the Lord, bro. They just
Right.
was thanking the Lord. And one of my friends that had became pastor, my friend Marvin Williams, he became a pastor. He was there, his family, and he was there. He praying, and my uncle Floyd, he's a pastor. He'd been in church all my life with my aunt Linda, and he he was praying. So we just did one big family prayer.
Right.
Everybody holding hands. We just prayed that the Lord continue to watch over me, bless me. We took a lot of pictures. A lot of phone calls start coming in
Right.
because people were like, I got a big family. So people thought they didn't know, like they heard that they was going to meet the parole officer, but
Mm.
if they would have knew that I was going to be there, everybody
Right.
would have
They
been
would have
there.
been there too.
But
Right.
they didn't know. So people was like, oh man, I ain't going because if my family got that gang background too.
Right.
So they, some of them was like, I ain't going because if I go, they ain't gonna let him out, that type of deal. But once I got out, they calling like, man, dang, I should have win. Different things. And it was just, and because I wasn't there long, I was there for about, I want to say an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to go see one of my best friends who
Right.
had started the neighborhood with me. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? He had just recently got shot right before I got out, and he
Mm.
was paralyzed from the neck down.
Dang.
So I wanted to see him because that was a moment, for me and him. He had just got shot, paralyzed from the neck down,
Right.
and my friend Tyrese, and we called him T Dog and T Stone, and he was bedridden in the hospital, and I wanted to
Mm.
see him before something happened. So
Right.
I left my family, and he's also my wife's cousin, Sheila's
Mm.
cousin. So I left my family, went up to the hospital in San Bernardino, and we got in, and I seen him, and I was crying. I gave him a hug, because
No.
he was like one of my best friends, man.
Right. Right.
For we was always together. Being young, we was always together, and then when we start doing this thing with the community, as far as getting involved in the gang stuff, selling drugs and all that with the community, he was one of the ones. He was right there. He's one of the ones that helped, as far as formulate what we started. And
Mm.
even though, like I said, it was supposed to be a good thing at the time, and at the time it probably was, but it turned out to be bad later, like all
Right.
gangs.
Right.
Um, but he was one of the ones that was real, was there. I
Right.
don't too much tell people his name, but I can do that because he passed
Right.
away. And
Yeah.
I let people that's alive tell their story if they want people
Right.
to
Right.
know.
Right.
But
Right.
But as far as and it was our other friend that was there. He's still alive, so I won't mention him. But it
Yeah.
was us three who really like got the community together like that. Even
Mm,
and it was a good thing, man. We was all friends. We was family. We was close. It was a good thing for many years. And then it just like all things just go
right.
another way, man.
Right.
Go
And
another
that's
way.
the gathering you're talking about when you got out. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Having all
man.
your family there and
Yeah,
praying and
yeah,
praising God
yeah,
and all that, man. That's crazy. And that
yeah.
was like what you say 12 years ago now?
That was 12 years ago, bro. May 2nd,
Ooh.
bro. And it was almost 12 years ago. And bro, life has been is and being home, life has been ups and downs,
Right.
bro. I've had many ups and downs, I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids now. Uh, you know, uh different things, bro, in my life,
Right.
Married, marriage doesn't come without issues,
Right.
you know, and life doesn't come without issues.
Right.
But I found out, bro, and this is just on the outer part of it. After 12 years, bro, and I don't know if you experienced this as a lifer, because I still say I'm a lifer. I think some people got comfortable of us being inside that institution,
Hmm. Right.
because it became their norm, so it was our norm.
Right.
So having to deal with us now that we're home and we're learning different things, it's an experience for them too.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to take,
Right.
you know, and and so people have to sometimes learn to grow back
Yes.
together on the
Hmm.
outside, but everybody has to be willing participants.
Yes. It
You
takes
know what
two.
I mean?
Right. Right.
Everybody, and I'm always open for that, bro. My son, my son Trey, he's the light of my life, bro.
That's right.
I spent a lot of time with that kid, bro. I love
Yeah.
him to death. I'm still with him.
Right.
He's 7 years old now. He's 7. He was born in 2017,
Mm.
and man, and I told myself I never. Once he was born, bro, I made a promise to him. I'll never go back to prison, bro.
That's right.
Never.
That's right.
I never go back to prison. I can't. You know, I don't never want him to remotely have to ever see me in that light, bro.
Right.
No
Right.
matter the circumstance, I don't want him to see that.
Right.
You know.
And that's what being a father is about, man. Making it the best you can for your kids. As
Yeah.
we get ready to wrap up, I want to close out by asking you two questions, and I'll ask them one at a time. The first question I'm gonna ask you is, what would you say to these youngsters that's out here? Because gangbanging and street life is a lot different now than it was when we were young,
Yeah.
and doing time is a lot different now too. That's something we'll end up doing a follow-up video one of these days, and we'll just talk about how prison is different now, because like you
Yes.
was mentioning earlier, the tablets and all this stuff, it's so much different now doing
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and even
Yeah.
the sentences they give out,
Yes.
they don't give out just 25 to life no more. They're giving
Yeah.
80, 700 years to life
Yeah.
and all kind of crazy stuff. So what would you say to these youngsters that's out here living this street life? What kind of advice would you give them?
When I talk, because I still talk, to a lot of the young dudes that know my story, and they'll call me sometime for advice, bro. And
Right.
I tell them, I said, man, the best thing you can ever do is do something positive for yourself.
Mm.
You guys have, and I say this to the younger community, and this is also to some older people that act young too, because there's people our age, Jim, that still haven't grown up. I'm being
Right.
honest with you, bro.
Right. No, I know. Trust me, I
It's
know.
it's too many programs out here that allow people to do things great in their life now, to where
Right.
you don't have to commit crime. You
Right.
don't have to sell drugs. You don't have to rob and take from people. You don't
Right.
have to break into people's houses. They have too many different things that allow you to get an income, and they pay
Yes.
you, and you
Right.
can go and do that and not have to worry about ever going to jail. And
Right.
it'll change your life, your family's life, how your family look at you, how you look at yourself.
Right.
because there's nothing in the streets. There's nothing in the streets. The police is still looking for people that they can arrest because that's their job.
Right.
You know, the guys that's gangbangers that's really into that, they still looking for people to shoot.
Right.
You know, and then guess what? With that being said, and the prisons are still waiting for some people to come and fill them beds.
Yes.
Because the COs still need they job so they can send their kids to college while you sitting in prison.
Right. Right. Good
So,
advice.
so
Good advice.
So the best thing you could do is take advantage of these programs, man. I've had family members that were in the game, bro, that were in the game, not in the game, but in the game.
Yes.
And I told them, I said, man, go down to EDD. They say, EDD? What do you mean? I ain't got no job. I said, no. EDD also helps you get a job. That's what it's for.
Right.
EDD allows you to go down there, tell them what you're looking for. They put you in the system and they basically set up a whole little resume for you, create a resume for you. And then they help you get jobs. They help you find a job.
Buy tools if you need it, buy clothes, stuff.
Yeah, buy tools, clothes, shoes, whatever. They even give you vouchers for motels or whatever, food, whatever. People don't know that because why the information isn't really spread out there. So when I tell people that, and my people went and did it.
Right.
They went and did it and they found out, oh man, they pay for truck driving. They got their CDLs, bro.
Right. Yeah.
They got their CDLs.
That's real.
If you're a person that don't want to work for somebody and you young, but you like being on the road, you like being out, go be a truck driver.
Good money.
They pay for that.
Good legal money.
Yes, they pay for that. And if you like being on the road, you're gonna see the United States.
Get your travel on.
Yeah, you're gonna get your travel on if that's what you're into. So it's so many things that you can do to stay out of trouble. It's just now these kids go and they look for trouble by the things that they post on the internet.
Right.
You know, that's one of the biggest things, the things they post on the internet. You know, being active over the internet, disrespecting people over the internet, you know, doing different things like going to people's neighborhoods, pointing guns at the street signs these people lived on. Those are all stupid things. Why? You know, my grandmother used to say things like this, bro. Everybody got a number, but you can pull your number sooner by the way you live your life.
Right.
You know, everybody got a number, but you can pull that number sooner by the way you choose to live your life.
Absolutely.
You know, God got a date for everybody.
Everybody.
You know, God got a date for everybody. You didn't. He didn't create you and bring you into this world without you having an end date.
Right.
You got an end date.
Right. But like you said, don't do nothing to make it come faster than it needs to.
But if you do things that come faster, you know, it's like I remember hearing, I was at church one time, and I don't know if it was Justino. It was Justino or it was Danny when we was on the inside in the chapel with chains.
Shout out Justino and Danny, man.
Yeah, in the chapel with chains. And I want to say I might even, because I went to Brian Worth's church too, over there in Paramount.
Yeah, Pastor Brian.
Yeah, I went to Brian Worth's church too. I went there a couple of times in Paramount. When I was in the halfway house, I would go out there to his church. And, you know, we were all lifers together. And Brian said this too, and it makes perfect sense. You know, we all got a number and a date, and God is watching over you.
Right.
But when you think that something bad has happened to you was of the devil, it wasn't of the devil. It's just God took his hands off of you to let this happen to you so you can learn your lesson.
Right.
Everything that bad happens to you don't always come from the devil.
Right.
God will take his hands off of you so you can learn a lesson.
That's deep. That's good advice right there.
You know.
Let me hit you with this other question as we wrap this up. look back now with everything you've been through, right? And where you're at today in your life. If you could say something to 15-year-old Medley, what would you tell 15-year-old Medley?
Man, go to school. Go to school. Get your high school diploma, and then go to the military, bro.
Mm,
Go to the military. Get some
that's right.
structure.
Right. That's dope, man. I appreciate you so much, bro. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us and sharing your heart, sharing your experiences. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate your time. As I mentioned before, got nothing but love for you. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. We'll talk some more, offline, and maybe end up doing a follow up. I've
Yeah.
told one thing for the viewers. I've been telling this man for a while he needs to get his own YouTube channel going. I've been telling him this for a couple of years already because I see him on Facebook and all of the stuff he'd be telling that he'd be talking to people about and giving advice to people that's out there in the street. And this man got relationship advice for people. He got, you name it, financial advice. He got it all. So I'm encouraging
Yeah.
him to start up a channel, man. So think
Yeah.
about doing that, bro. Think about doing that.
Bro, I've been telling you to help me teach me how to create the YouTube page. You know, I'm a lifer, bro. I'm still slow on some of this technology.
I hear you.
You
I hear
gotta
you,
help
man.
me.
I hear you. We don't talk about it. All right. Well, thank you, bro. Again, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, checking the video out. As I always do when I end my videos, I let y'all know Jesus loves you and so do I. God bless you. I'm out.